Well, Jeremy Hunt, the Health Secretary, is here. Good morning to you.
Morning, Susanna.
There's a father in utter despair over the lack of services, mental health services, for his daughter who is suffering from anorexia. And the only help they can get is 400 miles away. And if you are trying to support your daughter, travelling 400 miles, the cost, the emotional toll that involves, and her, isolation away from her family, he calls it a travesty and a scandal, and puts you on the spot to answer why that situation is happening.
Well, look, I don't disagree that there is a very serious problem here, and I've got two daughters myself, and I think any parent listening to Stephen Hollings, it's heartbreaking to hear that, and that is exactly the kind of injustice that Theresa May is this morning saying that she wants to do something about. And I think it is important to give credit to the NHS. The top psychiatrist in the country says that actually our mental health provision is amongst the best in the world. But when you hear stories like that, particularly when it comes to young people, and I think we've got a particular issue, particularly with younger girls, because of the pressures of social media. We've seen a big increase in self-harming. There are issues around cyberbullying. All these things are creating an atmosphere that's probably different to when we were growing up in terms of the pressures.
Anorexia is not a new problem. So to say that this is suddenly cropped up on people would simply not be true, would it? Why is there a situation where a young woman cannot get help close to home?
It's not a new problem, but I think we are seeing a growing problem in terms of mental health issues amongst the 18 to 24-year-old age group. So what Theresa May is saying today is that we are accepting a recommendation to put an extra £1 billion a year into mental health services by the end of the Parliament. That means an extra 70,000 young people will be treated every year. And there's a particular focus on young people because we know we're just, as a society, waking up to the power of good mental health treatment. When we were growing up, people didn't understand that in perhaps a half of cases, you can actually cure a mental health problem if you catch it when people are young. And
can you just explain to Mr. Hollings and to other people why, when you are suffering from a mental health illness or an eating disorder, the only treatment you can get is 400 miles away from your home?
Well, we actually are providing now more mental health beds for people with the most severe mental health conditions than we've ever provided. But we are seeing a growth in these conditions and a growth in the problems, and that's why today's announcement is a very significant increase in funding for mental health, because we want to have a society where parents don't have to worry in the way that Mr. Hollings is having to do now, and people who've got young children at school. We know now that about 3 children in every classroom have a diagnosable mental health condition. But we only help about a quarter of those, and that is not acceptable. And that's why Theresa May is saying today that's something we're going to do something about.